Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. So a little while back, I pulled Attuma on my main account, and I just never was able to really make him work. It always felt like I was tacking him into a deck, and he just didn't feel phenomenal. Well, today I think that changes. Today we are running a kind of crazy hybrid. We have the Zero aspect. We have the Daredevil to get a good read on our turn 5 play, into a turn 5 Professor X or Red Skull, or a double powered Red Skull, or maybe we even have ramped up into a Destroyer on 5 into a Taskmaster on 6. We have a lot of flexibility for a lot of really big power pushes, and then we have a Cosmo to protect our cards once we get them onto the board. We also have armor as well. Now, the idea with this list is that we can either ramp into an early Professor X, we can ramp into an early Attuma or an early Shuri into a turn 4 Attuma to get a 20 power presence on the board into a turn 5 natural Taskmaster, and then we could do a Zero and a Red Skull on 6. We just have a lot of flexibility, and we can do a little bit more power push than we would have been able to otherwise. I like Daredevil in this list because, one, we don't really play much early, and getting a read on an early Professor X lockdown into a massive Destroyer or a Red Skull feels almost unbeatable. And so this list does pretty well against most of the big meta decks. It might struggle against some Silver Surfer lists if you don't get your high roll. It could also struggle with leader, but the solace that this deck has is that if you use Taskmaster on turn 6 to copy your Red Skull or your Destroyer, and the opponent uses a leader, they're going to leader your Taskmaster, and it's only going to copy whatever the last card they played was, not the last card that you played, and so they get much less value out of that interaction than you do. The Jubilee feels like the weakest choice here, but she's in there as a Hail Mary. She is not something that we lean on every time we have her in hand, but sometimes if we don't have anything else on the board, we can feel free to throw a Jubilee onto the board and hope for something big. Hope for a cheeky Professor X land lockdown, a Red Skull, or something similar to get some increased upside. But overall, the deck list runs pretty straightforward, but let me go ahead and jump over into a couple of games and I will show you how I navigate it. All right, next up we have Chap Boy, and the first location is the Citadel, the Starlight Citadel, so the locations are going to swap after turn 4. We know that the Vault typically wants to have cards played there pretty early or relatively early. I think with this game, because we have our Shuri, because we have our Red Skull, we're probably going to lean into a 4 into 5 into a Taskmaster. A 4 of Shuri, a 5 of Red Skull into a Taskmaster to copy the 30 power resource of Red Skull, which should make it very hard for them to find that win condition. Now we could go with a Hail Mary Jubilee here. We could try for a turn 5 Professor X. We could do our Zero into a Professor X, but I don't know that that is enough to make sure that the opponent can't win. So we're going to go ahead and play Shuri into what's right now the Vault, but it's going to change after this turn. So our negative zone could be to the far left. We don't know for sure. And then one of them is also going to be the Vault, and so it's going to lock down on turn 6. That is probably the one that we need to play our resource into. All right, and so typically we are cautious of Shang-Chi counterplays. However, this time around, I think we're okay. I'm going to play our Red Skull into the Vault. Next turn, that's going to be locked down. They don't have a turn to react to our big power play. Now, they do know that we played Shuri. They know that we probably have a big resource coming down. They just don't know exactly how big. So we're going to go ahead and play Red Skull into the Vault. They do play Magic into negative zone to extend the game, so they're going to be able to play cards into the Vault one more time. And so if we can draw into Cosmo before then, we can actually stop them from destroying it, which would be ideal. So we could do a Jubilee Hail Mary. Jubilee would pull into a 1 out of 3 shot at pulling into our Taskmaster. The other 2 targets are Cosmo, not great for us, and Psylocke, also not great for us. So we have a 33% chance to pretty much just win there, but I don't necessarily like that. I like trying to lock down the middle location with a Professor X. Now, they may invest pretty heavily here this turn, but we're going to lock it down. We're going to lock it down. Next turn, we'll hopefully do a Cosmo. Oh, next turn we can't do a Cosmo, can we? We can do a destroyer somewhere. It just depends on if we can win this middle location. And we have 7 power, we have 8 power, which is not phenomenal, but it is okay to say the least. They do use the Brood in the far left. They use Mr. Fantastic in mid, so we do have the win here by 7. If they use Silver Surfer here, it is not going to be enough to win them this lane. It would, of course, win them this lane. Our next card is zeroed out. So let's go ahead and we're going to do Attuma into the far left. We're going to do Cosmo into the vault. We have initiative, and so Cosmo is going to stop their Silver Surfer. They can't play anywhere else but right here. And so if they have a Shang-Chi for some reason, that counters that. I'm more anticipating something like an Iron Man as well as a Silver Surfer, which is not going to trigger here. That means the 10 power here would let us win this lane, and we of course already have the Citadel locked down. I would snap, but I want to see this one play out. We have played so many games, and they've all ended in retreats because when you win with this deck, you win very heavily. So the Cosmo play comes down, none of their 3 on reveals that they wanted to trigger, and so we actually win all 3 locations. And so we were able to use the last turn Cosmo that we drew into to find our win condition. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Morphing, and the first location is Warrior Falls. So we can do a Shuri into a big whatever play in Warrior Falls if they have anything that's kind of a lower power play. Also, Jotunheim's going to benefit us from being able to do a big last turn or big power play there that has less turns to be negatively impacted from Jotunheim's effect. Let's go ahead and play Daredevil. We'll be able to see what they play on turn 5, so we can reposition our cards a little bit more strategically. We get Daily Bugle, which tells us they have a magic, which is kind of magical. Let's go ahead and play a 0. Next turn we will play, maybe we can do a zeroed out Destroyer or Red Skull, because we still only have the Attuma. So they're going to be able to play whatever they want, wherever they want this turn, which is kind of scary. I'm going to go ahead and play into Jotunheim. I feel like if they're doing a Professor X, they would play it into Jotunheim. Okay, so we got lucky. They changed it with magic. We're absolutely fine. It looks like they're going to lean into and allow the Warrior Fall location to be effective. Now, we could just go ahead and lock it down. We have the read with Professor X. They don't play anything here. Very interesting. And we have the additional turn, which is going to be great for us. We have the additional turn, so we can do a Shuri into a really big last turn play. So even if they do something massive, like an Infinite and a She-Hulk, then we're absolutely fine. Let's go ahead and lock down the Warrior Fall location. We don't have to worry about that one anymore. And then next turn, we're going to start prepping our Shuri, or we could prep, I guess, a Red Skull into a Taskmaster on the next couple of turns. No, so armor comes down. We're going to go ahead and do armor into Shuri in limbo. That way, if they do play here, maybe we can advance our lead enough to have initiative going to this last turn. They play a big Infinite into limbo, but we have the bigger, stronger, double power Red Skull. So now it really depends. What are they going to do for this turn 7? Do they have a Taskmaster that they're going to play? What is their play line? We don't know. We don't know for sure. If they do a leader to copy whatever we play, theirs goes off before our Shuri doubles down on our Red Skull. So it will only be a 15 power play. It really comes down to a read of where we think their power is going to lie. And honestly, I don't know. We could lose either one of these reads, either one of these locations, we could lose. Let's go ahead and play Red Skull into limbo. They do have the leader is going to copy the 15 power Red Skull. Ours is bigger than theirs. We both get the benefit from the Red Skull giving the other player's Red Skull that negative downside. And so ours is able to find the win condition with the 30 power play versus their 15 from the leader, because it does not copy, because they had initiative going into that turn. It did not copy the doubled down version of Red Skull, so we were absolutely fine. Much closer than I would have liked for it to be, but we will absolutely take those. We will take the 8 cubes. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Jay Conroe. The first location is Shadowland. We have Daredevil, Professor X, Cosmo, and Taskmaster in our starting hand. So we can always hide a Shuri into a doubled powered card, or we could hide a 0 into a last turn destroyer here. We have a few options. I'm gonna go ahead and play our Daredevil into the Shadowland. I don't know that we keep this lane. I don't know if we clear this lane or not, but I didn't know what that last unknown location was, and so I didn't want to risk potentially throwing into a Space Throne. I'm gonna go ahead and throw a Cosmo into the X Mansion. X Mansion is going to be a Casino Royale. It is going to be a gamble, and if they get a better on reveal than we do, I want to make sure that we block it. So the Juggernaut comes in, the Attuma comes in, but if they put anything else into this location, it will get destroyed. So I'm gonna go ahead and snap. We have a pretty solid play line. We're gonna do Shuri on 4 into a I was thinking into a turn 5 destroyer, but we can't do that. We can do that into a turn 5 Professor X, which is not as ideal, and then we can do a destroyer on the last turn. We'll see. We'll see if that is enough to win us the... Actually, we can get a little bit sneaky here. Let's get sneaky, guys. So what we're gonna do, we played Shuri. The next card that gets revealed will have its power doubled. I think what we're gonna do, before we even check these, I think we're gonna do Taskmaster here into a destroyer on 6 here. That's gonna be 30 power that gets copied by the Taskmaster in the Dark Dimension lane. And they do play a Brood here, they play a Forge, so this is going to be a 12 power plus whatever they played here, which could be a Mystique. They could have potentially played a Mystique here, right? Which if they play Iron Man as the last card that they play on turn 6, that actually elevates them quite a bit. We'll see. We'll see. Let's go ahead and play Destroyer. That should get doubled by our Shuri into a 30 power push, and then our Taskmaster is going to copy that 30 power. Are we able to hold this one down and win it? I don't know. We will see. I think they're going to have their Attuma get destroyed most likely. Oh, it is. No, it's a Silver Surfer, which does not bode well for the Broods in the middle. What were they? Jay Conroe, I think you misordered that a little bit there, friend. So they do now have the Brood come down. We have the Destroyer. Our Taskmaster is going to copy the massive 30 power from our Destroyer, and we're able to find the 2-lane win condition. I feel like it got a little bit clunky in their hand, or they tried too hard to play around the Attuma location, but especially with Silver Surfer not being in Dark Dimension and having 4 3-cost cards, that was 12 additional power that they missed out on. So this could have been a 20 power lane, which is much more formidable than the 8 that they ended up with. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Mog K. The first location is Shuri's Lab, which is a phenomenal location for us. Not only do we have Shuri in this list, but we also run really, really big power plays. And so if we can get an armor or a Cosmo into that location, then we are very, very set up for success. We could do a Psylocke into a Jubilee, but if the Jubilee pulls into a Destroyer, a Red Skull, it's actually not going to get doubled in Shuri's Lab. We're going to go ahead and play Psylocke for now. We'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. We don't know for sure what cards we're going to get. And so we're just going to lean into the fact that we want to do a big, powerful play. Wow, Starlight Citadel is actually going to change the position of each location after this turn. And so we can find some decent upside, I think. Let's go ahead and do our Shuri into the Citadel. Next turn, we'll do Attuma here. Eventually, we'll need to find a way to protect it. But after next turn, after we play Attuma here, after it gets doubled down, we'll be able to then play into a different location, which is going to be really, really, really big for us. They do throw down an Adam Warlock, which seems kind of brave. Let's go ahead and throw our Attuma. It's going to be a 40 power play here. We can then, as long as we have initiative, we can protect it with an armor. That way, nobody can touch it after that. We can do an armor into a 0, setting up for a turn 6 Destroyer play. We have a few options. If we draw into a Taskmaster, then of course we can do a Taskmaster as well into the new location of Shuri's Lab to double that one as well. We just have a lot of upside. We can do a turn 5 Professor X to lock down the Wong lane so they can't do any big, strong, ongoing plays. We could do a Cosmo play to make sure that they can't do anything here. That's beautiful. That is exactly what we needed to see. So we're going to protect The far left lane with our armor, Attuma at 40 power should be more than enough to win us that lane. We're going to do Cosmo into the Wong location. That should counteract any kind of plays that they're wanting to do. We can do a destroyer there as the final kind of capstone in Machine World, and I think we absolutely run away and win left and right. We're going to leave the middle location as a free agent. We're going to now have our armor come in. Is this a Shang-Chi that they were trying to... No, it's a Sarah. Very interesting. And we have the Cosmo in Machine World, so nothing big is going to happen here. They might be able to find something to push some power, but I don't think they beat 43 or 21. 21 is going to be hard to beat without the Wong on reveals of like Silver Surfer buffing up your broods or whatever it is that you're playing. And so then they end up retreating, which was a good call. We had the win condition. I don't see a path. An Iron Man here was not enough to beat them from the 40 power Attuma. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next game. All right, next up we have add salt, and we'll add a little bit of salt if we're not able to win this one. So the first location is the Lechugia. The second one is Sinister London, which we're actually pretty okay with. We could do a double Psylocke here to bring us up to 5 energy next turn. But I think what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to wait one additional turn. Next turn we will do a 0 and a Psylocke. Psylocke first and then 0. Never mind. No, we won't do that. But we can still do that play order. Actually, I like that maybe even... I might like that even better. On turn 3, we can now do our Psylocke. We can do a 0. It's going to take away their ability, so Red Skull is not going to have that negative downside. And it's going to be the last turn that cards can be played into Kiln. And so we will be able to secure that location pretty reasonably well. So they do play a Killmonger. That's not enough. Is this a Cerebro 3 deck? Both of those are 3 power cards. We need to look out for potential 3 power plays. Jubilee could pull into something that they don't want. Oh, and an Angela. So it can't be a Cerebro 3. And so X-Mansion pulls into a Black Panther for us, which is a beautiful card for us to pull into. Let's go ahead and do a Red Skull. That is a zeroed out Red Skull. That is 15 uncontested power there. They do have a Jessica Jones. That's going to get another 4, so they'll be at 14 power here, but we are at 19, which is massive. We can see what they play this turn, and they play a Sarah. Let's go ahead and we're going to copy the Red Skull's power with our Taskmaster. Next turn, we could do a Shuri and an Armor into the X-Mansion to protect this lane and have another 6 power push. If we wanted to, I don't know that we do. I think we are very cautious of any kind of destroyer play with Jubilee, so we don't want to do that. And can they push 7 power, or can they push more than 5 power here? Potentially. But I do think it's very, very difficult for them to do that. So I'm actually going to play the Cosmo into the Lechugia instead of Shuri. I think 27 power should be enough in X-Mansion if it's protected. If they try to do a strong on reveal over on the left-handed lane to try to, maybe it's a White Tiger. If for some reason they don't put it into X-Mansion, I think we can block them in the Lechugia. And so let's go ahead and end this turn. Let's see if they stick around for the final showdown. Okay, so they do double down in the X-Mansion lane. So depending on what they played, the Shang-Chi counter does not come through because of our armor play, and then the Maximus is still not enough to find the win condition. So this list pumps out very high power, and then it aims to protect and retain that high power through the armor and the Cosmo play. Similar to the Tempo Shuri, but it's just more refined. It has more options, more outs, and it runs incredibly well. But with that win, we are going to go ahead and end the video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave it a like and a comment down below. And let me know if you have any ideas for Attuma or Shuri or any of the other Series 4 and Series 5 cards, because I'm slowly working on acquiring as many of them as I possibly can. But as always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.